Hello everybody and welcome back to Strongholds of Order Academy. Today we're going to be talking about Bundo Whalebiter, one of the Mega Gargant options that we have in all order armies. He's quite good. I played a game with him recently. You can watch the battle report if you want. It was the last one that I published. Played him in Hallowheart with a few buffs. I think he's pretty good. Thank you very much to my patrons who support the channel and kind of, you know, as I said before, motivate me to do these videos. Without these, you'd probably just get battle reports and that would be it. So, newest patron is Nicole. Nicole is a local Brisbane player. She loves her Nighthorn. She's painting up eels, but she keeps going back to the Ghosty Boys for some reason. And she's a positive influence in our community. So, thanks very much, Nicole, for jumping on board, even though I told you not to. Alright, no faffing about, let's jump right into it. So, I want to talk about Bundo. I got the model painted up just because he is an option to take, and in 3rd edition, with monsters counting as 5 models on an objective, with monstrous rampages, with opening up a couple of the battle traits that you either complete with a monster or can only do with a monster, there's lots of options for him. So, when I played him recently, it was in Hallowheart. He's a very effective model on the table, but you can make him better with a lot of the friendly keyword. And it's not a keyword, but it basically is a keyword. Friendly buffs that can make him even better in the city. In the allegiance. So yeah, I mentioned a few of these things before. Here's both battle line and leader. So if you are playing in tournaments that have the scenarios that require battle line or leader models, he satisfies both of those requirements. He can do heroic actions even as an ally, and he, you know, finest hour on him is always pretty much a good option. With 35 wounds, he's fairly resilient, so doesn't give up the 1 VP for killing a monster. He does give it up, but not very easily, especially when he's in Hallowheart, when you can be healing him basically 2d3, is it 3d3? 3d3 plus 1d6 every turn. So it's extremely hard to take him down in Hallowheart. And again, he opens up Monstrous Takeover and the extra VPs for completing the killer battle line, killer general, or killer monster. If you do them with a monster, you get an extra VP on top of it. And so I think if you're not taking the Frostheart on Phoenix, he is an interesting option. And the thing that makes him interesting is the rule that he comes with. So dead cunning for a Gargant. At the start of the combat phase, you can say this model will be cunning. So you should be doing it gross majority of the time. I think the only time you wouldn't do this was if you were able to fight with him before your opponent and you had, like, let's say 5 wounds left and you need to do some damage before your opponent obviously is going to kill you. Then you'd fight with him at the start. Otherwise, if he's anywhere above probably 10 or 15 wounds, I'd probably just be fighting him last and re-rolling hit rolls for attacks made by this model in that phase. Really strong. Re-roll hit rolls kind of has gone away. I'm recording this on Sunday, so the Stormcast book is out. We can see that re-roll hits is coming back. They weren't actually doing away with it. They're just putting on a front. And so, you know, that's really good, especially when he's hitting on 3s normally. If you all-out attack him, he's hitting on 2s with a re-roll, which means you basically won't be missing anything. He's just really good. He's a really, yeah, his trait for being Bundo is really strong in the game. Alright, so now that we've got his special rule aside, let's kind of dive into the minutiae of his rules. So a lot of text on this page, so apologies in advance. 490 points for him. It is expensive. It's a quarter of your army. I think it's worth it. He's got an 11-inch move, which obviously degrades as you do damage to him, and he's a combat monster, so you need him moving up. You compare that to a model like Gotrek, who has a 4-inch move, pretty much a third of what Bundo's got. He isn't able to get into positions. You're able to play around him and ignore him because of what he does, because his speed just isn't good enough. But Bundo, you can't get around 11 inches, and he can reposition as well, just as well as Gotrek can. He's got a huge base that can go over objectives. It's not enough. It's not a 6-inch base, so it's not enough to keep opponents off it if they decide to deep strike down and put models within range. But, you know, he's you can't avoid him, basically. Range attack, 24 inches, obviously degrades again. 3 attacks, 4s and 3s. You can make it 3s and 3s, so you should be getting at least one of those through. It's interesting, and you can just throw it into stuff you're in combat with, and it, you know, you don't need it to do damage, but it can do damage, and it's good. So he has 35 wounds with a 4+ save, so he is what has been termed in a lot of the podcasts recently as a DPS check. So do you have enough damage output over 1 turn to remove him? Because if you don't, and I get the next turn, I'm healing him up with you know, heal on a Rune Lord, Emerald Life Swarm for 2d3, Seer Wounds for d6, and then another Heroic Recovery for, I mean, he's only Bravery 7, which is a bit shit, but Heroic Recovery for another d3 as well, potentially. There's lots going on with him. So with Rend 1 weapons, it'll take 49 wounding attacks to kill him. If you can stack him up to a 3+ ignoring Rend 1, it'll take 105 wounding attacks to kill him. Get him on mystical terrain for an after save, or give him blessing from a priest to give him a 6+ after save. That makes him, you know, whatever that is, not 10%, 20, 16% more resilient. It's pretty good. If you just go points per wound as well, so he's 14 points per wound roughly. All the following models are all including an after save. So Anointed on Frost Heart's basically 13. A Drakesworn with Amulet of Destiny is about 19. I think that changes because I think they went from 16 to 18 wounds, so that's changed slightly, but you can see the difference. And Gotrek is 18 points per wound. And as I just mentioned before, Bravery 7 annoyingly low for Heroic Recovery. You'll be healing him 41% of the time for D3 and 17% of the time for 1. But what that also means is that 42% of the time you're not going to be healing him at all. Is that how maths works? 58, 42, yep, 42% he's not going to be healing on a Heroic Recovery, so you pretty much don't want to be using that on him, just with that chance to not succeed. So his offensive output at top bracket, and rounding off basically against 2+ armor saves, he'll do 8 wounds, 3+ he'll do 10 wounds, 4+ he'll do 12 wounds, and 5+ he'll do 14 wounds. These can obviously be improved with Finest Hour, All Out Attack, Inspired Triumph, and then, you know, Random Chance, Standard Deviation, doing high numbers of damage on your D6s and your D3s. But that's what you're looking at on averages without any buffs, which is not horrible. Taking off 10 wounds a turn of 3+ armor save models is actually pretty decent. And on top of that, he's also got his Stomp that he can do for extra mortal wounds, or roars, or, you know, there's all of his monstrous rampages that he can also do to increase his damage output. So I've looked at his war scroll, so we'll now look at his war scroll abilities. As you can see, I've crossed out the ones that kind of aren't really relevant, because the assumption is that you're fighting last to reroll all your attack rolls, so Almighty Stomp and Death Grip are irrelevant when you're doing that. So when he charges, he does impact hits on a 2+. It's D3 mortal wounds if it's a monster, or D6 if it's not a monster. So really strong, especially against character, you know, 5 wound characters. If you charge in, you can allocate that, and if you roll a 5+, then they're removed basically, and you can then stomp on them if you don't. You know, you roll a 4 or a 3 and leave them on 1 or 2 wounds. You can then stomp on them on another 2+ and do more damage. Really strong. Get Off My Land is probably one of the best things about him. So he likes to play soccer, so he's obviously a POM. Kick the objective away, and what you want to do a lot of the times, kick the objective back to your castle that you're going to be playing with him. Obviously it's on a 2d6, so it's completely random what you do, but then after he's done that, you can move him up and just leave the back of his base within 1 inch of the objective, because he's got, you know, a 5.5 inch base. You're still threat projecting with that, because the next turn he moves 11 and then charges, so you're not hamstringing yourself by doing that, but it means you can castle more effectively with your own home objectives in a lot of the new scenarios. Longshanks got changed. Basically, you can move over all models always, as long as you finish within outside of 3 inches of them. That's basically the only requirement, so that's really good now. If only you could give him reroll, retreat and charge somehow. It'll make him absolutely crazy. Sunder Behemoth, so, you know, Nagash doing Hand of Dust, or Archaon trying to put him in the sword, he just takes D6 mortal wounds instead. Yeah, so really good, you can't remove him. So he's actually a fairly good option to throw into Nagash or Archaon just to tie him up, because they can't auto-kill him. The Stuff Mimi Net thing is actually pretty good. You can technically break coherency with it, but and it's extra good when you can choose to fight last, because you're going to be piling in after the opponent's unit, and you can just pick one unit in the middle, and if they're out of coherency at the end of the turn, then you know, you can break coherency. The timing's a little bit annoying. If you're able to do it like at the end of after the end of the combat phase, or at the end of the combat phase or something like that, it'd be significantly better, because you could put all of your wounds into the unit and then try and break coherency. So it's still good. Most of the time, even if you broke coherency, your opponent's just going to take models from one half of the 2 blobs of that unit that you've now created, and probably if you're doing 10 wounds to them, you know, that's going to be the gross majority of them. But anyway, you can do it. It is an option. Terror, subtract 1 for bravery, fine. You know, 1 extra model runs if they fail their battle shock test. So that's effectively what that is. So it's really good. And then finally, if he dies, he falls over onto things and suffers D3 mortal wounds. It is what it is. I don't want him dying. So, and you know, the one game that I played, he hadn't died yet. And the point of the list that I play is to make him not die. So, I think you just, you know, it's a rule there that if you win it off, it's just bonus. You shouldn't be playing into it. Anything that I've really moved there? It's really good. He's really good. His Son of Bahamut thing also stops Neferata's dagger or the Skink Chief with a stabby dagger from killing him instantly, or Korgus Cool, I guess, as well. Yeah, his Warscroll abilities are really effective. Like even with losing 2 of them because of Bundo's specific ability, he's still got a really good suite of rules, and some of them that you won't find anywhere else in the game. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can buff Bundo in your list. So there are obvious ones in the main rulebook. So Mystic Shield for +1 armor save. So it makes him save on a 3+, which is really good. And then you can start save stacking with him with a 3+, which is good when you've got 36 wounds. Levitate to make him fly. I don't think that it's overly needed, but the option is there for you to move over, because he can move over stuff anyway. Like, he basically moves as if he flies regardless, but it's there and you can cast it. The Heal Prayer to heal D3 wounds, which is really good. Bless Prayer for a 6+ ward, which is really good on a 35 wound model. And then Bloodthirsty and Inspired, so reroll charges, or +1 wound. +1 wound is really good on him because he wounds on a 3+ a baseline, so that's really good. And then in addition to that, you've got probably 3 of the battle mages. I don't know that these are the ones that directly affect models. So Fast Protection on a Hish battle mage for -1 hit. Really good on a 36 wound model. It's good on anything, but it's particularly good on him. Gairan battle mage, so D3 mortal wounds to any unit that charges him. You can do it. I don't think you'd be taking a Gairan battle mage at the moment anyway. And then my favourite choice is the Gur Battle Mage. So Wild Form gives him +2 to run and charge, which when you're moving 11 and then you're charging, you know, an average 9 as well, that's 20 inches up the board. In 3rd edition is literally half the board that you'd be able to go in 1 turn. So really strong. And the Gur Battle Mages obviously has the synergy with us playing in Gur this season, which means that he has +1 to cast. And if you've got a Hurricane, he's +2. Really strong. I really like how the battle mages kind of augment Bundo, just because they have their spells affect friendly models and not just Cities of Sigmar models. And then we get into the Strongholds of Order buffs. So caveat with this is working with the assumption that spells are not allegiance abilities, so you can buff Bundo with these. That is the assumption we're working with. The wording is a little bit weird, but essentially being able to take and cast the spell is benefiting from allegiance ability, but having a spell cast on you is not benefiting from an allegiance ability, according to the gross majority of people that I speak to. And it's something that could be FAQ'd, but they're never going to. So we're just making that assumption for the purposes of this slide. All right, so Hammerhall, Wings of Fire, +1 to run and charge, and fly. Also really good in combination with Wild Form, so you can give Bundo basically +3 to run and charge and fly. Really strong. And then Cinder Cloud is good for when you're advancing up the board, so -1 to hit any unit within 9 inches. So those 2 things can affect him. They're really good. Living City, Life Surge heals him D6 because it's friendly only. Really good. And then Iron Oak Skin, -1 to wound. Also really strong. If you can combine an Iron Oak Skin with Fast Protection and your -1 to hit and wound on a Gargant with 35 wounds, they're not going to be doing a whole lot to you. Grey Ward is basically none. I just put this in because you can technically do it, but nobody cares. You can run and shoot with him. Nobody cares. Phoenicia, Manvelgard, and Tempesai, all kind of irrelevant. They're either keyworded to the city that they are in, or they don't have any directly affecting buffs. Like Tempesai, you can only give +1 attack to Tempesai units, so with Aura of Glory. So there's no point considering that. All right, so Hallowheart is where I think he is best suited because they have the widest number of buffs that you can give to him. He doesn't get the 5+ save against spells, but he gets a lot of other things. So Seer Wounds is a big one. Heal D6, as I said before, when you've got, you know, an Emerald Life Swarm as well, and you've got the heal prayer, that kind of thing, you're healing him a lot per turn. Warding Brand is probably one of my favourites on him. So every time an opponent does a wound to him in melee, on a 4+, they take a mortal wound back. And when you've got, you know, if you're fighting a unit, you've got 35 wounds, that's 17.5 mortal wounds back to whatever's hitting you. So whatever kills Bundo, if it does kill him in one turn, it's going to die back, gross majority of the time. And then Ignite Weapons. So it's interesting because it makes his shooting attack 2+ to wound as well. But, you know, with his 8 attacks with the club, 2+ to wound, you should be putting this on Iron Drakes. But, you know, in a crunch, you can put it on Bundo to make him even better in combat. Then we've got Misthaven. So Misthaven, they obviously don't have a spell lore, but they can take, because he's a hero, and that's the only qualifier for Misthaven to take narcotics. He can have the Sinister Outcome for +1 to hit, which is good. The heal D6, which is Skiffer's Salve, which is, I don't think it's that great, or Fly. And again, because the Longshanks rule basically is the same thing as Fly, I don't think that's overly useful. So I think I'd be taking the Sinister Outcome on him. Or alternatively, you can take, if you're fighting against an army that has high rend, you take the, is it the Glatchink? It might be the Glatchink, whatever the one is that gives you ethereal saves. No, it's Ghost Mist, gives you an ethereal save. 4+ ethereal is still not bad. Ask Nighthaunt. Situationally, it's really amazing, especially if you're coming up against someone like Selson Prime that's got -3 rend on his weapon. Like, you know, just the ability to be able to negate that is quite strong. Hakuron, there's nothing, but you'd want to take Marathi instead of him anyway in Hakuron. Settler's Gain, you can give him a 6+ ward with Shield of Light, so not horrible, it's not great, but it's there. Excelsis, so Gift of Prophecy. This is the one where I'm kind of iffy about whether or not you're actually able to use it, because it is specifically a battle trait for that city. It doesn't say it has to be an Excelsis unit that gets it, but this one kind of makes me think, am I stretching the rules too far if I try to use this to give him +1 to hit? The one that you definitely can use is in the right place command trait. Redeploy him at the start of the first battle round. So if you deploy, if say that you're a 1-drop and your opponent deploys their stuff to counter Bundo on one side, you can, with in the right place, pick him up, put him on the opposite side of the board and throw him into the weak stuff that they've left over that side. So I actually quite like in the right place with Elusive Bundo. And as I've said before, narratively, Excelsis is where Bundo belongs, but I think rules-wise and on the table and competitively, Hallowheart is going to be the strongest city to run him in. So people like painting, so I've just included pictures of my Bundo on this chart so you can have a look and enjoy. So this is the list that I've played, that I played most recently in the battle report. I think it's strong, and I think it, you know, kind of uses Bundo quite well. So you have a Hurricanum with Battle Mage, with Seer Wounds. I think I actually went with Elemental Cyclone instead of Roaming Wildfire, but this was the list that I had available, so I just put it on the slide. Real lazy stuff. So go Battle Mage. So as I said, Wild Form is available for him to benefit from, and he's also got Warding Brand and Ignite Weapons, both of which are good on Bundo. You've then got a Rune Lord, who essentially is there for casting the very important spells, so Ignite Weapons and Solskrim Bridge, and potentially the Emerald Life Swarm as well. Anyway, he's got Prayer, which is the one. He's got the Heal Prayer, which is another one that can heal Bundo. 30 Iron Drakes, 10 Longbeards, 10 Iron Breakers, 5 Sisters of the Thorn. The idea behind the Sisters of the Thorn is that they're mobile and they can follow Bundo, and that they can use Seer Wounds on him, plus or minus Ignite Weapons or Warding Brand, depending on what you want to put on them, because it's all cast on a 6, and so you should be getting, and they get 2 casts as long as they've got 2 of their models in the unit. So they're kind of, you know, you've got your Castle of Dwarves, and then you've got your mobile units, which are Bundo and the Sisters of the Thorn. And then you've got the Emerald Life Swarm, the Bridge, and the Burning Head. The Burning Head's irrelevant, it's just there because it's there. Because I had spare points. This is a 2-drop list. It's quite strong, so it's a good support list for Bundo because you give him Wild Form, you keep him alive with all the heals. The Iron Drake and Hurricanum are great at clearing screens and knocking out things that he's not so great at taking out, like the high armor stuff with the -2 rend and with the mortals from the Hurricanum. and it allows Bundo to kind of break through. So if there's a screen that's in the way and you need Bundo to go into combat with something, say that he's got Wildfoot on him and you want him to go into the backfield, the Iron Drakes and Hurricane can pretty reliably remove that screen so that Bundo's got an avenue to get into the squishy middle at the back. He brings mobility to the list that is fairly static. He also supports the castle because he can kick stuff towards it. And if he doesn't kick far enough first turn, you can just put him close to it and kick it at the start of your second turn. Ignite Weapons Inspired Triumph makes his damage really good, combined with rerolls to hit, all-out attack. You know, there's all of the command points that you can use on him to make him even better. But you saw the effectiveness of this list in the battle report against Soul Blight, which are one of the stronger armies in the meta at the moment. You know, consistently going 4-1, and like, I don't want to take anything away from Sam, but my list absolutely hosed his. And I think Bundo was a big part of that because he just didn't have the DPS to once I'd killed off his what's his name, Vordry, he just didn't have the damage output to kill Bundo, and so Bundo was able to do whatever he wanted. And with this list, because you have those Iron Drakes with the Soul Screen Bridge, with all the bonuses to cast, as long as you're not coming up against things that can auto-unbind, you can basically choose where the Iron Drakes go, and they can remove the main threat to Bundo, which enables you to apply him to areas that are weak to him, essentially, and allows you to get more out of him than you would be able to in other lists. But yeah, if you want to run Bundo, this is a great list to run him in, and it supports him really well and will allow him to shine on the tabletop. All right, well, that's it. Thank you everyone for listening. Going forward, it's going to be all Stormcast all the time for the next few weeks, because the spoilers for the new battle tome, the Man Reads book for the new battle tome just dropped today, or last night, and so I'm already starting to gear up to talking about Stormcast. So if you're looking forward to that content, it won't be too much longer until it comes out. Dragons are good. Who knew? They actually made Gardas good, which is amazing. Sequitors are now shit. Some people disagree with that, but in my opinion, Sequitors are now absolute trash. Liberators are actually an option, but Vindictors, which I have a lot of, I think I've got 30 of them now, really strong. And so not only are there a lot of strong options in Stormcast Allegiance themselves, they bring a lot of utility to the Cities of Sigmar lists. And so we'll be talking about that quite a bit over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and I'll be making sure that I do some battle reports, not just with cities with Stormcast Coalition units, but also with in Stormcast Allegiance. And spoiler alert, you'll be seeing some Paladin heavy builds because I've got a lot of Paladins and I've got a lot of Annihilators and I want to use them. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll speak to you next week.